How many people around him aren't necessarily in the position that he may be now, in where there's a few pennies in the bank.
I don't really know why it's tolerated.
This is a high-risk game for us. I don't think he's that prolific at all. Humorous meets irony. He's very considered. He's very considered, which is something to be celebrated, I think. He's very all contemporary art is a paradox.
I know Banksy.
There's always another twist to the Banksy story, isn't there? And he, whoever he is, has always got other tricks up his sleeve.
He's clearly very clever because I think the fact that he infiltrated Bristol Museum, it was a surprise to everybody.
He must be a good man. He must be a good bloke.
Coming back to Banksy again, he's got empathy in his paintings if you look at it.
I never get requests to come and talk to me about Pele and Stevie Wonder, because even though they don't give interviews that often, they do give interviews. The one person that I do get asked about continually is Banksy, and I normally get, I would say, 2 phone calls a week.
Is the fact that this man has made a lot of money out of doing something that's basically illegal, criminal damage to property, is that going to encourage more people to do it or discourage them? And plainly it's going to encourage them, because now they see that it can be a valid route to making, well, in Banksy's case, one assumes quite a lot of money, and that's got to be attractive.
Banksy, top man, put stencil graffiti on the map. More power.
But maybe my Banksy is Banksy.
Banksy's cool, man.
Yeah, no, he's...
I want more Banksys. Where are the little Banksys? Let's go. Let's go straight to the bank. Let's surround the bank. Let's fuck the mortgage bankers while we're at it.
Well, what we would like, you just said it, I mean, it's graffitis, they belong to the garage, we'll try to do our best, I mean, to keep them, but I mean, they will live like graffiti lives in a city.
But when you think of a Damien Hirst or a Banksy, don't you actually think, like if I say Banksy, you say, oh, mysterious, he's got sarcasm there.
I think Banksy's shit.
Why don't you like him?
Because he's a fucking overpaid art fag who cuts stencils out.
Banksy personally imported all that fucking dope into Bristol.
Did he?
He did. I know that for fucking fact.
The whole question about who is Banksy, you know, I mean, famously, Banksy's people always say there's a bit of Banksy in all of us. You know, if you ask anyone at one of their exhibitions who it is, and they say, well, maybe it's me, maybe it's you. And I quite like that idea.
I've never been that sure how I got to meet Banksy. How did I find him? I think one of the things is you go and interview this person, and I wasn't like in awe because I didn't know much about him, but obviously you're standing there and you're waiting for someone and you're thinking, who the fuck am I waiting for? Because you don't know what he looks like, you don't know what he sounds like, and eventually kind of this guy, his manager Steve, turns up and he says, I get a phone call, he says he'll be with you in a second. I turn around and I can tell that the phone call is very close to me. I can hear it like in stereo through my phone and through, you know, kind of proximity. And then I turn around and there is Banksy, so I think. And he seems, you know, he was quite scruffy, not fantastically scruffy, quite scruffy, he had a silver earring, I think, a silver tooth, slightly unshaven, you know, kind of bit of morning shadow, a bit more than I've got, and he drank lots of Guinness, and I drank lots of Guinness, and I suppose after about half an hour, the thought preying on my head was, well, this is all very well, but how do I know that you're Banksy, 1, and 2, do I really care whether you're Banksy and if I'm being fobbed off? And I suppose what convinced me that he was that he just talked about himself with kind of such knowledge and such ease, and you know, it just didn't seem possible that he couldn't be. It had seemed pointless if he was trying to be. He was very convincing anyway. But you know, having said that, you read things afterwards where apparently he's this kind of posh public school boy, and maybe it was him, but he was selling me kind of his public persona of himself, which was that he'd been to a comp and he'd got into trouble, and that he'd ended up in some kind of, I think he said he'd ended up in some remand home. He wouldn't go into detail about it, which did make me slightly suspicious. But then again, maybe both versions are true. Maybe he went to public school, maybe he did get into trouble. He wouldn't be the first person to.
You know, Banksy had some little things up on the wall. He was there, and we just kind of met and said hello, and he was lovely, sweet, polite, kind of shy. And I loved his work. I mean, I think the image that I fixed on, and, you know, this will give you a sense of, you know, like, money won't change you, but time will take you out, as James Brown would say. He had little stenciled images, you know, on Aaron Brothers frames or something, you know, like of his Molotov cocktail thrower with the flowers in the bottle. And I love that. I think they were $300 or something.
To be honest, I look at that picture there and I think, was that Banksy? I'm not sure. I think it probably is. I was in a pub with him, I got pissed with him, we did a good interview, I wasn't sure if it was him, and then in the end I decided it probably was him.
I feel I know him, I feel I recognise the signature. It's as if he leaves an aura behind of having been there. And the place in fact becomes quite holy, because you don't just, it's not just the piece of work, you can imagine him having, because the piece of work is always located, is 50% or 80% is location. So it's all around a keep out sign or a no filming sign or a don't dump rubbish sign. You know that he's walked past that sign every day and has noticed it and started to think about it, and then his brain is, and so you get a sense of standing in a place that he stands and viewing something through his eyes, a piece of street furniture, or and knowing that that environment is important to him is, I think, just as interesting as the work.
What's that piece of art over there?
No idea, mate.
Could you have clearly revealed his identity? I suppose you could have done, but because we were in such a different time, or you were in...
Well, I think if you had it, it'd be a betrayal of trust. I do think one of the things about journalism is that if someone offers you something on some terms, you've got to respect that. You know, and if you're going to challenge it, you've got to do it in an open way. I mean, what would I do? Kind of get my mobile out, go like that, and then run away? I just think there's something dishonest about that.
He sort of breaks the rules a bit, but he doesn't break it, he doesn't go over the line of sort of doing it, and it's like...
Yeah, I love graffiti, it's like, it's not tagging, it's art.
Yeah.
Yeah, tagging is just stupid, but if it's proper art...
It actually means something, like, instead of... Like, people just write rude words on doors and stuff, and they think it's cool, but he actually just does it for a meaning. I like that.
And a lot of people will offer him things. I mean, I'm sure he has offers all the time of things that either from institutions or individuals, or offering him opportunities. But in some ways, you know, how often he would want to do that, I don't know. But I can't imagine, I should imagine he's very choosy about what he does, and rightly so, because you know, managing his exposure and his associations are clearly a big part of the whole image and personality.
There's something quite juvenile about Banksy's politics. I mean, we know that A Nation on CTV, it really gets right to the core of what it feels like to be British. But unfortunately, in some respects, if we look deeper, we know that CCTV is probably an unavoidable aspect, and there are times in our lives when we've relied on it ourselves. You know, I had an apartment once that was always getting people forcing in the front door, and having some sort of CCTV camera, even though it doesn't do anything, helped deter. You know, it's useful. It's not just a clean question of yes and no. Banksy tends to present things as a no. You know, it's very quite amateur, studenty kind of politics, but we can engage in it. We know exactly what he means and exactly what he's feeling, and instantly kind of warm to it and get the joke. And that's what I like about it. I walk around and you just smile. You just look at it and you go, oh, fucking brilliant, genius. You know, it's so simple, and it's instantly recognisable as Banksy. And for all these people who are in the genre of Banksy, and you do. I walk around the East End on the Banksy tours. I walk around. I go and inspect his work all the time, and I'm very sad to see yet another one disappear, or some wanker graffiti artist making their crappy nothing name by defacing a Banksy, as if somehow that elevates them to his status, is just laughable. That's what you need to do.
He's got a good kind of political message.
Seemed to be kind of very much on the button of what's going on in the world, I think, from the time when, you know, he went to, what was it, the Thunder Bay ride in Disneyland and put in that kind of figure of a Guantanamo Bay detainee, from that to going to the wall that separates Israel and Palestine. It's always, you know, increasingly perhaps it's been stuff that's very much on the button and in the sort of political here and now. So I should think that will continue to be, you know, his next, whatever it might be, maybe something all about identity and unmasking, since that's been the latest story or non-story.
He could be a secret agent, couldn't he? He could be passing messages on through his art to people all over the world. It's great, isn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the beauty about Banksy is he's all things to all men. If somebody turned around and said to me, said, Banksy's the nearest thing to Jesus we've got in this world today. I went to him, do you reckon? He said, yeah. And funny enough, the person that said is an atheist.
Who knows what makes him tick? He sounds like a very, very interesting character. Yeah. Sounds like an interesting human being, actually, because if we're to believe that he, which I hope is true, but again, I may be over-romanticizing the whole thing, but if we're to believe that he goes and gives most of his profits to charity, I mean, wow, you know, yeah. How can you fault? It's almost like it's another comeback onto society, because you know, society begins to sort of, you know, want to build somebody up, and then when they're pretty much at the top of the flagpole, you start chopping away at it.
I mean, to me, it was the perfect, as I said, perfect marriage in that between the traditional institution and the city and him, and it wouldn't have had the same power if it had done it in Tate Modern. I mean, it would be completely different. But the fact that he wanted to work in the museum in the way he did was incredibly unexpected, I think, to most people. So yes, I think it's showing that he can surprise. The scale of it was phenomenal. I mean, and yes, he invested so much of his energy and resources into that show. It was just incredible. His team were incredibly hardworking and professional, and you know, so it was not an amateurish performance. It was a huge machine. And so yeah, he's made me realise that he could do whatever he wanted. So yeah, maybe he'll come out and surprise us again, or maybe he'll go underground for a bit. I mean, the Bristol show was his biggest show he'd done, and certainly hadn't shown work in the UK for years before, so and definitely not on that scale.
Well, I understand Banksy is an artist. He's known for his street art, and he does some amazing work. Whether you see it as some form of vandalism of the environment, I suppose, is a personal view. The quality of his work is outstanding, but my view is that he needs to be very careful where he performs his art.
The reason he wants to protect his identity is because of the commercial value that it gives to his work. And so it's very difficult to see that his right to a private life, his right to a family life, will be invaded by an investigative journalist saying, I've done these researches and this is who I think this man actually is. And if that happened, then he'd probably just have to bear the consequences.
Imagine Banksy choosing not to allow people to know who he is was slightly accidental to begin with, and then very quickly looked like became irresistible or charming, and it must be wonderful to be Banksy and to be able to walk amongst us mortals, knowing that he has this kind of massive fame.
There's no legal right to know who somebody is. I mean, Banksy's problem is that, for example, in some cases, if he wants to enforce the rights to which he's entitled, for example, his copyright, he's going to have to reveal who he is. Now, it may be that as a logistical matter, it's possible to do that under conditions of confidence that meant that no one outside of the legal action involved would be able to know who he in fact was. But it would be an obstacle, a very difficult obstacle for him to overcome, because generally speaking the rule is that if you come to the law you ought to be doing so in public, that law should be, that justice should be seen to be done in public, and therefore the general principle is that you don't protect these kinds of things. But as a general rule, he doesn't have to tell us who he is, and why should he? We're all private citizens within the state. This is information that we retain for ourselves. Why should it be revealed? Sometimes we're going to need to rely upon it for our own reasons, but it's very difficult to see why the law would require, the civil law at least, would require you to identify who you are. Of course, as a practical matter, often we do need to identify who we are. Getting a driving license, getting a passport, and so on and so forth. But of course there's a difference between saying this is who I am and saying and I am the person known as Banksy. That's, you know, he can have two separate personas from that point of view and it not make a particular difference.
I think the people around him though are very cynical. You know, I'm not, you know, I do find that I think they're probably more protective of him and his brand and the way he moves forward than he is. And I do have quite a lot of the inside track. I lived in LA for a while and I kind of know that there was a big bust up between Banksy and the people who worked with him over the amount of money they took from the LA show that made him so popular in America.
Copyright are purely property rights. It's all about the money. That's the only issue that arises. There are connected rights that sort of lie above it, or perhaps more appropriately one might say underlie it. Moral rights, so the right to be identified as the author.
And I think it says something about Banksy that he wanted to give that interview. He was doing his first ever exhibition at a gallery, and so he obviously decided he wanted a bit of publicity at that stage, but I don't think he's ever given an interview since.
270, the Banksy. You told that joke twice. And I'll start this at 85, 90, 95,000 pounds.
And therein lies one of my biggest problems in the urban art movement, that you've got a lot of these artists, a lot of whom are very talented, and a lot of whom I have to say are not as talented as people say they are, because they're trying to make them into something that they're not. But in both cases, they are being cash cowed, they're being milked. And that's not fair. It's not fair for the artist, it's not fair for the artwork, it's definitely not fair for the buyer. The only person who seems to be benefiting out of it is predominantly the dealer or the agent.
At 95,000 pounds. 95,000 pounds. Commission bidder in the book at 95,000 pounds.
Automatically people start saying, oh, that's worth a lot of money. And it's like, oh, right. And then you think, like the guy come on the telly that same sort of week and he covered his one up in plastic. And it kind of didn't look quite right, did it, Chris? It was like, what would you do that for? You know, you're covering it in plastic, protecting it, and then you're selling it. It kind of takes away what it is actually there for, doesn't it? I mean, it's there. I mean, if other people want to spray on top of it, they're only doing what the first person did, and that's kind of a freedom, isn't it, in a way? Yeah. To do that, so it's not our business if someone sprays over the top of it, you know.
At 95,000 pounds. Who'll say more than 95? 100,000. Thank you very much. 110 with me.
Even the same with houses, you know, people allegedly cutting sides of their houses down. There's a reason why he would have selected that environment, and it just seems sad that someone would choose to remove it.
120, I had 130.
One of the interesting thing about art, in a way, when you think about it, is that it's a uniquely capitalist area. The value of the piece is entirely determined by how many people want it versus how many of them are available. And in a sense, you could say, the more people want it, the more popular it is, the more valuable it is relative to... Of course, that argument must break down at some point, because otherwise the best pieces of art, or the most valuable pieces of art, would be the most popular pieces of art. And it doesn't always follow that way. Some pieces of art are more valuable, even though they have a very niche appeal. But there's, you know, art is in a way a uniquely capitalist or a particularly capitalist field of endeavour. The value of what you do is precisely determined by the scarcity and demand of your products versus the interest in those products.
140. I'm out now. It's at 140 with Darren Mead and £140,000. Also more than 140 now. Look, you're coming in now. It's at 140.
When you buy art, I mean, I suppose that's pretty much the fundamental problem that I've got, is that, we're talking about all art as investments, and don't get me wrong, I'm not airy-fairy, happy clappy kind of guy that I'm thinking, oh, well, let's all buy art, for the sake of it, because it's beautiful and it's salvation to our spirituality, and not at all. We live in a world, myself included, where you want value. You want to know that what you've bought and acquired is going to have some kind of value. In addition, I'm talking economic value now, hardcore money. I mean, not in addition to all the elements, which is the reasons why I hope people are buying. But I also appreciate and understand, because I do it myself, that there also has to be an element of value attached to it. That you're not going to go and buy something for £15,000 and then find that at the end of the year, pretty much everyone around you knew it was going to end up being 100 quid because it was just valueless. But for the kind of artists that we represent and work with and sell, I mean, that's quite unlikely. But it is a risk. Of course, it's a risk. Everything's a risk. The world is a risk. I mean, you buy something and there's no guarantee. You buy a property in the middle of Belgravia today. Who's to say it's not going to be worth half the value in 5 years? We can't control things. What happens? Feast, famine, plague, war. I mean,
At £140,000 for the Banksy. Hammer's up now. Selling for £140,000. Sold to you lot. Thank you, Darren. Sorry, 837. Thanks so much.
We're in Clerkenwell Road.
What's behind us?
It was a Banksy. I believe it's just been taken off the wall.
How much was it sold for?
I don't know. I mean, it's between my landlord and whoever bought it.
You haven't heard any amounts of money being mentioned?
No, I haven't, no.
When did they start removing it?
About 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Where's it going to?
I believe it's a private collector. So he's bought it off my landlord. He's found some people to take it off the wall, and he's taking it off the wall.
What do you think about this?
I'm quite glad it's going, actually. It saves my fence, because too many people go over the fence to try and have a look at it.
Mr. Banksy might pop back, might he do another piece here?
Yeah, if he watches this, could he just put it right on my grills so I can take them off nice and easy?
If he did your grills, that should be what? At least 50, 60k, shouldn't it?
Well, I think so, yeah.
And then that's good for your business, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but we could take them down, pay for some motorised ones, which would save me a lot of backache. I was getting a bit narks at people going over the fence. My fence was all smashed up because people were climbing over to take pictures of it. In front of the steel was all broken. Art students going over the top, unofficially off the red road, it's in Liverpool, apparently.
What is it they're trying to take off the wall?
I don't know, but he came in, he's a customer of mine, he's a paparazzi actually, and he came in and he said he's got a friend up in Liverpool where Banksy did some work up there, and he's going to try and take it off the wall, but it's part brick and part render, so he's going to have more of a trouble than these guys here. Graham, he's got to paint the whole area.
Oh right, so there's
and make good and provide my landlord with a life-size photo. I think it was, from what he tells me, it's about £1,000.
That's not a lot.
It's not, but he bought it a year and a half ago.
Really?
But yeah, he just spent a long time trying to find the right people to take it off the wall.
Well, it's not an easy job, is it?
The two main galleries of dealing in his artwork is obviously Lazarides, who is, I still can't work it out, his primary dealer, and seems to be doing very, very well, and seems to be very well put together, clever guy, and getting on with, with supporting urban art and artists, and he seems to be very pivotal. He's got a good eye, I'll say that for him. He's got a very good eye for what he does. And ourselves. And of course there are a lot of other, what I call bedroom dealers, you know, the online gallerists and the guys who are sort of private, you know, sitting on their couches with a mobile phone and a Wi-Fi connection to their mobile and dealing in art. But, I mean, and there's one or two very nice guys out there who do that, but the majority of them I question mark, because they're kind of hawking his artwork as a commodity, as an investment. I mean, I had lunch with one 2 weeks ago who remained nameless, but it was the most surreal lunch I think I've had in a long time. It was, the lunch lasted an hour and a half. The guy did most of the talking. I sat back and listened, which is quite unlike me, as you can, you know, see I'm nice and verbose. And I got back and I said to, you know, to my colleagues here, to my staff, I just said, we could have been talking about barrels of oil. There was no discussion about the artist, Banksy. There was no discussion about the artworks. There was no discussion about people buying. It was a commodity traded discussion. You know, I buy at 60 and I sell at 100. It was that kind of conversation. It was very sad. I mean, I don't want to be, I mean, I'm in it, but I don't want to be, you know, it's not even that we don't want to be blatant about it. It's just not our MO.
Recently we heard of someone who got their barrow, their kind of, whatever, the trading barrow, graffitied over. And someone recognised it was a Banksy and gave the guy 15 grand in cash or something for it. And everyone thinks it was terribly clever. They cut out the piece of work, and and apparently it's worth a lot now, and I'm sure that it's still a very good investment. But for me, the idea of cutting out the piece of work from the environment that it had been painted in shows a fundamental lack of understanding about what Banksy is about. At the very least, have the good sense to leave the piece intact.
He paid someone to do a caravan, and then afterwards it was worth 3 million. Pretty cool.
And £96,000 in the room against the telephone. 97,000, 98,000, 98,000. How are you going to do 99? 98,000 in the room against the telephones. Any further interest at 98,000? Are you sure? I'm selling at £98,000. Thank you very much, sir. 527.
That's 45,000, right? Okay, and like you, and that's what it is, and I'm not gonna, and I nail it down at that. That's 45,000. Yeah. This one is, you know, that's 16, and you know.
But these are opinions.
Yeah.
These are my opinions.
Yes.
That I think, you know, having done a little bit of homework, I hope, and having had open discussions with, you know, with my team, that you kind of build a kind of ballpark figure of where you think the fair market value is.
Yeah.
But it's not about, you know, saying to people that, well, I've bought these, I bought them at £700, and I reckon I'll let them go when they're 100,000. I mean, it's, you know, that's just commodity speak. We're talking about what do we think is the fair price of selling, you know, a Banksy, a Deface, a Giorgio, whatever, to our clients. What's the right price? Where is it a win-win-win? It's not about, you know, it's not about killing off the client and making as much money as you can, which unfortunately a lot of, especially in the consumerist world that we're living in, and this very bullish, very capitalist world that we live in, is very much about that, is what can you get away with? That's most people's mantra now, is, you know, what can we get away with? It's not about, hey, let's look after the client, because if we look after the client will then come back to us again and again and again, because they'll feel comfortable. And whilst we could have made a killing for $500,000 with a client on the first time, and then maybe if you're lucky, do another one the second time, it's not gonna, you know, but you'll never see the client again. Whereas our philosophy is that, hey, wouldn't it be great if we can work with that client for 20, 30 years? Because we'll make a hell of a lot of money than, you know, than $500,000 a pop in the long term.
You know, you're actually talking about a feeling rather than a particular thing, aren't you?
No, but they're images.
So when you go and buy, yeah, but what I'm saying, when you go and buy a Banksy, you're actually buying a particular feeling. You're buying sarcasm and, you know, and someone who's rebelling against and being clever. So you're not actually buying a piece anymore, are you? You're actually buying It doesn't matter which one you buy. They all got. You're saying they all got. A lot of people kind of say the same thing about every one. Oh look, he's being sarky. He's being a bit rebellious, and he's infiltrating into buildings. So you're not actually buying a piece. You're buying someone infiltrating into buildings. You're buying an idea. So it doesn't really matter whether it's a rat or a cat or a. You're buying sarcasm and
That's
whatever.
right, yeah.
And with another artist, you're buying something else. So you're actually buying a bit of their personality, really, aren't you? Whereas before, wasn't it more about buying a piece?
The reason I made the film was really, as I said earlier, when someone's famous, what is real anyway? What the fuck is real about their lives? Almost nothing is real. You can see why alcoholism and drug use and everything is so rife. It's just nothing. There's nothing real in that, not just in fame, but in money. There is nothing nicer about. There's nothing nice about sitting in a boat.
I think what he does is quite creative. Is graffiti art or a crime? Whether is what he's doing right? I mean, kids spray painting on walls. It depends whether they're doing wrong or right.
Already you can see that he's changed the way huge numbers of people think about A, graffiti, and B, art. I think he's made a great deal of people rethink their views on graffiti. People that before just thought it's kind of an eyesore, it's urban blight, you know, it's associated with bits of cities where it's dangerous or you can't walk around at night or whatever. I think Banksy and others, but perhaps chiefly him, have changed that view and have got so many more people interested and appreciative of graffiti, you know, researching for that book and writing about graffiti for Venue magazine in Bristol. I've realised that all different groups of society that before probably were either unaware of it or took a dim view of it now say, yeah, I like it. I walk around my local bit of Bristol and look out for what's come up next. You know, this is school children, women in their 60s, whoever. I think that's a relatively recent thing, and it's part of the Banksy effect, that lots of people suddenly think, oh yeah, there's art goes up on our streets and it's really interesting and it's fascinating seeing what's going up next, and this bit makes me laugh, this bit makes me think about, you know, the war in Iraq or whatever it might be. So I think he's massively changed the way we look at graffiti, and I think he's probably will be seen to have changed the way we look at art as well. Maybe we'll have a less kind of hierarchical view of art, that you don't have to have kind of been to the Royal College of Art and, you know, have an intimate knowledge of art from Giotto to Monet to actually produce something worthwhile and amazingly artistically strong and valuable. So I think he's turned a great many more people onto both graffiti and art than before.
Do you know, does the post office control that wall?
That's what I really don't know, mate. I mean, I was talking to my managers today and they were saying that basically it's a bit of a hazard because vans are coming in and out all day, and of course it's become a bit of a tourist attraction.
Certainly was. God blimey, we went to church at 10 o'clock and I come back in the afternoon and went to church, come home, went to see somebody, come back again at 4 o'clock, the scaffolding was gone. And that was there, and I thought to myself, wow, that's what I like. Sunday morning, I was coming by going to church, and looked, I thought to myself, oh yeah, I know what, now somebody's putting scaffold up around the club, and I wonder what it is. And then come back later, about 12, and I see somebody inside, because it was all covered in. It was all like, you know, like blacked out, and you couldn't see what was going on behind. And at 4 o'clock, come back and you see what it was.
I looked at it this way. Look, they must have. Ironically, the CCTV. They've been put up there. The lights are they've been attached to the wall.
Did the post office check their CCTV to see whether to know whether they actually captured him and his bods doing it?
What I heard that happened, it happened over the weekend, and Saturday afternoon, Saturday night in here is dead. All we've got is security, probably 2 people.
Yeah.
And what happened, they come in the front with a scaffolding lorry with some sort of paperwork saying that they wanted to clean the walls, right? And so this scaffolding went up and it was covered in tarpaulin.
We're alternative funeral directors, Heaven on Earth in Bristol, and it must be 5 or 6 years ago we did actually deliver, it wasn't at the same time, but during the same year we delivered 2 coffins for Banksy to spray for obviously friends of his who had died. One was for a pub landlady who had vodka bottles and various other things sprayed onto a coffin, and the other must have been a close friend. All I can remember was on the actual coffin he'd sprayed "No more lies, truth time," and this is what people saw as the coffin was lowered into the crematorium. So we didn't know how the mourners would take it, but it went down very well because, as I said, that was what he used to say all the time, and Banksy had sprayed that on the coffin. It was older 80s, it wasn't stencils, he'd done like freehand, yes. They didn't look like stencils to me, but yeah, more the 80s style.
And there are no photos of these coffins?
There are no photos, unfortunately, no. I think at the landlady's funeral, Paul McCann actually did the speech at the funeral, so Banksy obviously moves in the right circles.
So there were 2 coffins he did?
There were 2 coffins, yes, that he did. They were just we supplied plain coffins without any varnish or anything on them, called In the White. And of course they're easy to spray, and yeah, he did a great job on them.
When did it strike you that you knew did you know when you delivered the coffins, did you know that they were going to him and that was kind of curious?
We knew that a Banksy was going to do them. He had, you know, he obviously had a little bit of a name in Bristol, but certainly not the international acclaim that he has now, and you know, he seems to be on everyone's lips and people paying hundreds of thousands for his works, but we knew of him certainly, and we knew that we had to deliver the coffins and pick them up without meeting him, so we knew it was a bit hush-hush, and it all added to it, I suppose. Yes, it was.
And when did the penny drop for you? When did you sort of think, right, okay, that was Banksy, and we supplied them to him, and did, you know, your sort of interest heightened it a little bit?
Well, obviously when he got more popular, when he got more famous, when he was appearing on the national news, and we think, oh wow, we actually, you know, we actually supplied something that he painted something on, and I wish we'd have kept them now, but no, it was, they were great funerals, and the coffins were appreciated by all friends and family, so it was, yeah, it was a great thing he did.
It may not be so obvious when you first look at it, right? But if you look at the colours, and every area where he does his graffiti, if you look at the area, and you look at what the social mix is, and you look at what the density, if it's high density, high-rise flats, something like that, he seems to be able to suss what the right colour scheme is for the particular piece he's going to do, what the subject matter is, right, where he's going to put it, you know what I mean? And you know, and he's obviously going and checking out the social mix of the area as well. So that piece on the wall there is ideal for Bethnal Green. Maybe if it went somewhere else, it might not work. It wouldn't work up around Holland Park.
One of the things that gives me great pleasure is being involved with the Banksy thing. But I don't know whether my work, I'm not as cynical about Banksy as some people seem to be. I haven't invested any emotional, he's not my guru, my political guru, because as I said, his art's actually quite childish and his messages are quite childish. And there's nothing particularly sophisticated about a Banksy message. It's just a very clear piece of thinking on, let's say, CCTV or the arms race, or it's just nice, beautiful pieces of thought, but actually it's not clever, and so it's clever in the way it's delivered, and in that, you know, they're more like jokes, environmental jokes, and they just give me great hope. You know, I go around and I just feel someone has a really nice independent thought and a really beautiful piece of execution. So I'm very happy to be involved in that.
So when people look at a painting or look at something like that, it detracts them from all the going around. They actually stand still. You can't go past that out there, no matter how much of a hurry you're in, right? Even if you're coming home and you've had a shitty day, you come past there and you get a secret smile. You just smile to yourself, you know.
Yeah, no,
It's an incredible thing, and I find that children and young people, even teenagers like it, and older people like it as well. And it seems to cross the age.
Are we to blame? Are the auction houses and galleries like Andeepa to blame for this phrase urban? Because we're trying to do the one thing that I don't like doing, but I almost feel compelled to do, which is to try and give it some boundaries, trying to put it in a box.
It was done in this purpose to show Switzerland as a kind of open country and open to exchanges between different communities, artists.
Getting up at all hours and going out there.
And what happens when the police turn up?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you speak to graffiti artists and they get false documents and they show people documents to give them an extra half an hour, and then, you know, I suppose it's quite exciting for them, isn't it? You know?
And like what did it take to put the, you know, it's quite big, the flower.
Yeah, there's scaffolding, yeah. There's scaffolding up there, you know, and it was done really quickly.
It was through an approach that his people made to us at the museum. So the first we knew about it was that he rang, well, not him personally, but his people rang up the museum, and I think they tried to speak to me, but I wasn't available, but they ended up getting hold of the exhibitions manager at the time and said that they were interested in working with us. And of course we all thought it was a bit of a joke at first. We thought, oh yeah, who's this ringing us up saying it's Banksy wants to have an exhibition with you? Because it was just like, we'd sort of said, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could work with Banksy? But never thinking that he would work with somewhere like us. So anyway, when the call happened, the first I knew about it was that Phil came into my office and said, Banksy's people want to take me to New York. And of course, in local government museums, this doesn't happen very often. So anyway, I said to him, well, they must be serious then if they want to fly to New York to see his show, because he'd got the pet store on in New York at the time, and it was going down. It was only there for days, so they wanted to get him out there to see it, because the proposal was to bring the pet store to Bristol.
No, there's always this kind of sense of the kind of intruder, I think, isn't there? Like going into all these prestigious museums and art galleries in New York and putting up his artwork. I thought that was a very strong symbol of the kind of thing he does. It's sort of toppling the whole idea of authority, you know. I've got every much right to put my artwork up in this museum as anyone else. Or it's a very kind of democratic notion, I think.
Yeah, it's just a general email saying, how do we feel about graffiti? Because it's quite a nice big wall. It's quite a nice canvas, if you like, for a graffiti artist. And it's just a general inquiry, would we mind having a graffiti on the side of the building? And this place is run on committee, so the committee said, well, that's fine, because they kind of like supporting. They realise there's a young influx of young artists in the area, and due to that, they said, yeah, well, you know, if it's not offending anyone, they don't mind it at all. So, and then it just popped up. Obviously, you wouldn't like it on the side of the building if it had been a horrible thing, and like Chris was saying, you know, people were enjoying it in the area. So if it was horrible, we would have been scrubbing it off the wall probably, wouldn't we? Or people would have complained and they've made us scrub it off the wall, you know. So someone else has gone over it, and there's nothing there that anyone's wanted scrubbed off. So it's welcome to be there, isn't it, you know? The first one happens to be a Banksy, because our email was, local artist, are we okay to do some graffiti on your wall? And he said, yeah, as long as the neighbourhood's enjoying it.
Can you just describe what happened with the Banksy artwork that is on the side of your chemist, please?
What's happened recently, you mean? It's been defaced. It's been, someone's come with a roller and some emulsion paint and defaced the flag, or Tesco carry bag.
Why do you feel that's happened?
Why? I have no idea at all. To me, I don't know, it seems like pure vandalism to me.
How did the rat appear on the outside of the building?
The rat, I'm pretty sure, is a prank, actually, to be honest. I'm not convinced it's by him at all.
Yes, we had this party, I think, if I remember well, the project was a project called Regeneration, and the idea was really to pass the new century over to some young artist, and the topic was mostly graffitis. And this show was followed, I mean this launch, it was a rave party actually, where a lot of young people were invited. And this rave party was followed by a kind of conference on the legality of graffitis. And the project went over, and we kept the graffitis in the garage without really thinking of what was going to happen or whatever.
The Guardian mentioned as well that we were due to whitewash the graffiti, and that was definitely a plan, but I think the ambassador at the time thought it was rather nice to keep, so they weren't whitewashed.
We seem to be on the Banksy tourist trail here, because we have one of Banksy's works 2 doors down from us, and I think Bristol has become a bit of a mecca for Banksy fans.
What's the piece that's just down from you then?
That is the rifleman aiming somewhere with a boy standing behind him just about to pop a paper bag, which a bit of controversy when it first came because it's right opposite the children's hospital, but Banksy being Banksy, I think people loved it more than loathed it.
Do you like it?
I like it, yes. I like his art. Yeah.
What do you think he adds to the city?
Bit of fun, a bit of, you know, I mean, we have problems with ordinary people who spray things, but this is, I wouldn't call it art, but it's got a message, it's fun, it makes you think. So I think it's a good addition to the city.
What would you say to the media who want to reveal him?
Party poopers, and they're boring.
I suppose like graffiti art is something that kind of empowers a lot of people because they don't wait for galleries to, you know, to allow them to exhibit. You just go out and do your thing, and so I guess when one person does it, it encourages other people to do it.
It does direct action as well, doesn't it? Because he walks into the Tate and stuff and just puts his work up.
Yeah, people like that, don't they? Because it makes them feel like they could be doing something like that too. Everyone can do that. And he's not even using his name sometimes, is he? He's just doing it, and it just happens to be him. And that means that anyone could do it. You could do it. Chris could do it. You can't. Maybe that's why people like it. It gives them a bit of glimmer of something they could be doing too. It needs to be someone who's got a name or got contacts. You can just be clever and do it.
The strength has always been the idea. I just remember speaking to one Bristol artist who said, you know, I thought of similar things, thought of doing similar things to the kind of things that Banksy's done, but I haven't had those ideas, or if I have, I haven't done them. And that's the thing with Banksy. I think it's incredibly crisp, clear, witty, subversive ideas, and then it's just the kind of get up and go and the balls to go and do them around the world, in dangerous places, in foreign unknown places.
The public's reaction was just amazing, overwhelming. I mean, it was just showed amazing warmth to him and appreciation that he'd chosen to do this amazing event in Bristol. You know, he could have gone anywhere. He could have gone to New York. He could have gone, you know, to anywhere in the world. But he chose to do it in what is his hometown and to give Bristol a massive gift. And it was a massive gift of time, energy, resources, but also himself. Because as I say, I think he revealed, you know, other layers of himself through the exhibition inevitably, and added to the whole persona of Banksy and the attachment that Banksy has to Bristol and Bristol to Banksy, and started lots of new debates for the city and really put culture at the centre stage for those months that he was there. I mean, for the time that the exhibition was on in Bristol, it was the biggest talking event in the city. It was, you know, seen as the biggest cultural event of the decade. You know, we had visitors from all over the world. I mean, you know, 350,000 people came to see it. They queued every day. I mean, it was a phenomena.
Best of Warhol moves you. I'm not sure why. I don't think you ever know really with art. And on the whole, the best of Banksy makes you smile. And I don't think that's enough to kind of turn you into a great artist in the end.
What do you think Warhol might have had to say about Banksy if
he'd be jealous?
He'd be jealous.
Yeah.
Why? Because Banksy's had more success, do you think, or?
Not more, but because he had success. I mean, like, I think he thought of something that Andy didn't, because that's the nature of Warhol's character, was very competitive in a way. I mean, Warhol is not a multi-dimensional creature. You don't want to know him. That matrix, that cultural matrix, was pretty toxic.
Right.
I mean, I ran away from it.
Right.
But I think Banksy is a much healthier person.
Warhol was for the 60s, but I'm like Banksy's is for the 2000s.
Right.
Because what he's doing is what Warhol was doing, he was using materials and new ideas back in the 60s, and there was new products coming onto the market for artists, like new paint colour, different coloured paintings, different coloured pigments and all that. So Warhol cashed in on that. Well, what Banksy's done is he's gone one step further than what Warhol's gone. What he's done is he's taken the society around him, this 24-hour society, and he's created an art form to go on to meet that.
The question isn't really how accepted is Banksy going to be by the art movement. It's more how credible will he remain as he becomes more of an establishment figure. He's already proved himself as an establishment figure.
I don't know whether he sees himself as part of that world or not, because he isn't patronised by a gallery or someone like Saatchi, but he does have people that buy his work, celebrities buy his work, and works of his are auctioned at very high prices. So he does participate, whether he wants it or not, in the art world, in that he makes money from it. And he gets his, credibility by being part of it or being anti it, whichever way he's playing it, really. So he's an interesting addition, I think, to the art world that we live in, and his celebrity is part of that. I mean, contemporary visual arts is also concerned with celebrity, as we know. Yeah. Artists are celebrities, and he's part of that. He may not be a celebrity that has his picture on the Hello magazine, but he's a celebrity because the way he milks the media and plays the media means he's a celebrity.
He's been able to play the media, I think. He's been able to release as much or as little information as suits him, and each time with his kind of stunts, it's always been the right place at the right time, so to generate interest and intrigue. So I think he will continue to kind of play the media game ingeniously and skillfully, but I'm sure, will it mean that he'll recoil from the public eye? I don't know. He's already pretty removed from it in a way, isn't he? So I don't know what impact, if any, something like that story will have on how he works. It may not have any impact.
There was a mystery buyer that bought 50 copies of the film.
Really?
Yeah, so, and I'm wondering whether that was Banksy, because we got a huge order from that one person up in, and I've been actually really good. I haven't looked at the name and the address. I decided just to let that go. But I'm guessing that whoever is probably using them as Christmas presents, I would do if I was Banksy, because it is amusing and it is an amusing piece of work.
AK-47 said he wanted me to get in touch with Banksy to act as the hostage negotiator. So I said, what do you want? So he said, well, I want like 20,000 quid or something.
I think it's a shame that people are desperately trying to unmask him, is all. I think that in this day and age where everything, it seems, is kind of known. People are, if anything, are too known. You know, people are famous for doing very, very little, aren't they? I think that in this day and age, someone being able to retain an element of mystery and anonymity is amazingly exciting and unusual.
The only thing I've negative about it, if I was Banksy, I might be thinking, do they like my work or do they like my mystery?
The moment he stopped surprising people would be the beginning of the end of the whole saga, I should think. But I think that's what he's been able to do all the time ever since. You know, he's able to constantly kind of play with people's expectations and surprise people, and I think he'll continue to do that, really.
It's great what he's doing, because he's given someone something for people to kind of focus on, and like we said earlier, you know, it makes them feel like they can do anything, you know. All you've got to do is think of a little, you know, think out of the box, and it's kind of open things up for individuals, which is great, you know.
Of course, I will watch with interest to see what he, like you said yourself, what he does next, because for me that's part of the whole persona and the brand, is like, what does he do next? Where does he go next? How does he top that? What narrative does he want to create next? And yeah, he can do what he wants, I think, because, you know, the fact of the matter is the show only happened because he approached us and he resourced it. And our part in that was we said yes and we made it happen. And we worked with him in a way to enable him to have as much creative freedom as we could possibly allow him to. I mean,
there's plenty of people out there who think Banksy is nothing, it's a waste of time. It's, you know, taking energy and resources and you know, square centimetre column space away from other artists, and there are other people who think exactly the opposite, who think they herald him as a great hero of the art world.
I can't believe that he would slip from history completely because of the impact he's had, and obviously an exhibition like that was held this year is going to be, just because of its popularity, I can't believe it would just disappear. It's a phenomena.